that process to at least help you maybe put a full stop or an underline. So then after that, you go, okay, I've done that now. The people that say, I'm going to be with you every single week and call you. I'm going to be there for you. Yeah, a week later, where are they fucking gone?
And it was almost like they rolled the red carpet out for me. They didn't give me one plot at the shul, they gave me 3 plots on condition I became a member immediately. And
did you have to pay for 3?
No.
I'm looking over because my wife's on that. You see, you need to do this. Not about just blubbering into a wreck on the floor. No, cold as steel.
3 or 4 days a week, it was a coping mechanism at the time. Now I look at running and I think, I couldn't think of anything bloody worse than going for a run for 3 hours of my day. Because she lives on, I believe she lives on within my heart.
Hello, and welcome to MenDoTalk podcast number 5. Number 5. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you?
Today, I was angry last time.
We were both very angry last time. We could have done a podcast today on anger part 2 with part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 probably straight after, but we thought we'd give everyone a little bit of a break.
Yeah, so today I've donned the grey T-shirt because, and so have you, I see.
So have I, actually.
Yeah.
But with a bit of colour, because,
yeah,
you know.
It brings out your eyes.
I got my new trainers.
Yeah? Nice.
We can still be...
I don't think they beat mine, but...
I like these. I think they're... We can still be grieving and trendy.
Fashion aficionados.
Yes, fashion aficionados.
Which we are not, to be clear.
No, I'm a setter, not a follower. Yeah.
You just follow the trends.
I'd say, hey kids, how do these look? Oof,
you haven't donned the peak cap yet?
No, caps are me just awful.
Yeah. Really?
What, as in like hats, as in...
No, like a peak cap, like the old grandpa caps.
No, they look awful on me. Anything like that looks...
Backwards Kangol hat?
Oh my God. I'll wear a cap, but of course all the kids call them snapbacks, don't they?
I don't know, I just know that I'm the uncoolest dad in the world, even though I know I'm the coolest dad in the world, right?
Well, I think as dads go, I think we're okay.
My other 2 children always say to me, last night I had them over for dinner, and it was like, oh, well, Dad's very in touch with himself now.
Yeah, whatever that means.
At least they're not saying I'm touching myself.
No. Well, they wouldn't be wrong, would they?
It is a coping mechanism.
It is, but we're not talking about that today. What are we going to talk about?
Releasing the tension.
Yes, releasing the tension, but not here.
Well, it's conveniently we can go from that to this, which is anxiety. And spirituality, and how I feel the 2 are connected. And we have, I think everybody has levels of anxiety, but that is one of the main things that has struck me on the grief process is anxiety, and how I've coped with that part of my being. I've used various sort of coping mechanisms to try and control anxiety, and it's been, it's gone from meditation to spirituality to wanking myself into a coma. Sorry.
I don't know how I'm going to edit that out. I might not be able to. But everyone does it.
Everyone does it.
There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
And on a grief podcast, probably isn't one of them.
Sorry, for wokeism purposes, I'll say masturbation.
Call it what you want. Same outcome.
Literally.
Yeah, I know. That was the joke.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's all right. Anyway.
And I'd just like to apologise because Lee is just getting over a cold.
Yes.
And he's passed it on to me, no doubt. So thank you, Lee, for that.
Because, no one ever gave it to me.
Not that we've been intimate or anything, but the distance between me and him is
fine.
Is quite short. But no, so yeah, I've tried to cope with anxiety and that feeling that where it hits you in my gut. I've described it in the past like almost like irritable bowel syndrome because it's sort of it hits you right in
it's right in the base of the stomach. It's the butterflies.
Yeah.
It's that little
Yeah.
for no reason.
I think the way I describe it is you go into that feeling you get when you go into a school exam or an examination, a doctor's examination. That fear of dread, that it just seems to park itself in the stomach. And obviously, I've had to use medication to help sort of control it. And sometimes,
what did you use?
I used I've tried everything. I'm trying to think what I use at the moment. Pregabalin, I think I use to control it. But also I'm on antidepressants as well, which is another sort of one of these drugs. But originally when I took some drugs, it affected my libido, so it's counterproductive, especially when you're trying to wank into a coma. So sorry. But basically, I'm in one of those moods today. But basically, yeah, and now I'm on a right balance of things that work, but it's still there. It never goes away.
No.
And yeah, I've tried to go off it in the past, and it does have a negative effect. And you think you're in a good place, and then quite quickly you're in a very bad place. Yeah, I wouldn't, I need it in my life. It's as simple as that. And, there's parts of me that just, think about medication, and Lee has his view on medication as well. But what I've learned is that, if I look at my family history, my grandma was on Prozac for most of her life. My grandfather had a breakdown during the war. He had to collect bodies.
So let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
So, okay, so your grandfather had a breakdown during the war because he was collecting bodies.
After the war. I think it hit him late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it goes, when you hear something like that, well, that's enough for any person to have any type of breakdown.
Absolutely.
I mean, 1 or 2 or 3, well, yes. So so I wouldn't want to call it a history of in the family, because it's like,
it's the nature, it's the nature versus nurture debate, isn't it?
Yes, like so many of my family's experienced burns. So why was that? Well, they were all firemen. It's that, because that's what they did. I'm not saying that, but with regards to medication, see, I've never taken medication ever for it. Not legal medication, and if anything, it would have been the smoking of the herb.
A Jamaican woodbine.
Jamaican woodbine, friend of Bob Marley. That was my vice. I remember at one point the doctor offered to put me on Prozac, but I didn't feel that I needed it, because I felt I was coping.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have anything prescribed to me.
It's the psychologist versus the psychiatrist debate, I suppose, because a psychiatrist will immediately prescribe you a medication, and a psychologist, to a certain degree, will avoid it until the point that you need it. And I was in that sort of therapy route for a long time, and for a long time they were saying you need something just to ease, take the edge off.
But I do get a bit slightly dubious with doctors, however fantastic the majority of them are. It's the quick, there you go, take that, that'll take the edge off. That's where
and as I said, you resist it, but then you get that sort of initial, almost like jubilation when you're on it, and you don't want that feeling to go away. I've been on ones that have been almost psychotic, Like,
Well, okay.
in fact, without naming names, a psychiatrist turned around to me and said, "When I was at university, I used to take this as a bit of a high."
Yeah, but it's funny because we were talking about that with someone last week, weren't we?
Yeah.
About I get the actual, but there's a lot of people that microdose anyway, because microdosing is a way of just taking the edge off your day. Some people have a coffee and it affects them in some way.
Yeah, I mean,
Some
I
people...
used to smoke cigarettes many years ago during university, and it was the nicotine that I was addicted to.
Well, yes.
And when I was at university, I enjoyed the odd joint, and again, same thing, took the edge off, but I didn't enjoy the feeling of being stoned. It made me more anxious, if anything, and I had sort of.
So did you?
So what I then realised when I came off it, that it was actually the nicotine part that I was addicted to. And
yeah, but also it's quite a habitual thing. It's the whole let's go and skin up, take the Rizzler, the rolling, the da-da-da. It's everything. When it comes to the actual smirking of it, you're like, oh,
yeah,
is that it? But that's I think with it's like going to the pub.
Yeah, but it is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
In our generation, it still happens a lot. People are still enjoying a reefer and
really,
yeah. I haven't touched it for so many years now, and I don't miss it. But I do vape, and it it's nicotine vape, and it helps just take that little bit of edge off for me. But we all have those sort of. It's annoying because in a way. The things that take the edge off to a certain degree, they're also bad for you. It's like the old don't eat too much chocolate because it's not great for you. But part of my evening routine is to have some chocolate. I just love it, right? But then I go to the gym the next morning, and it takes it doesn't make me feel guilty for going to eat the chocolate or eat the bread or whatever it is. There's a lot of advice and guidance out there on healthy eating, but ultimately my routine, and I suppose you can relate this to the grief journey, I suppose, in a way, it's sort of like what works for me may not work for somebody else. And, we all have different stages and different journeys that we're on. And it's what works for you. When I decided to go into DJing and that sort of thing, that was me escaping and using music to sort of get me out of my headspace. And the same applies to, shortly after Maddie passed away, my initial feeling, and it was, is she okay? And I went to a spiritualist. And that became very much a big part of my coping mechanism, as did going to synagogue on a Friday night, mainly because I didn't want to go on a Saturday because the service is longer. But I found the ritual of it and the people, I'm in United Synagogue, so it's predominantly men in a room together with all very much a common sort of belief system, and it helped me spiritually to get into that process. Now, my father, and we'll talk about you in a minute, what you did immediately after that, after Madeline's passing. My dad went the opposite way. When my mum died, he refused to go to shul, and he still refuses to go to shul, and I had to drag him to shul when shortly after, literally the day of Maddie's burial, which was a Friday afternoon. To get him into shul that day was hard work. You've said in the past your dad turned to Catholic before Madeline died, and told you after.
Well, yes, I haven't actually told that story to many people, so now...
Didn't we talk about it in previous pod?
I don't remember, did we?
I don't know. We may have to talk about it again and then cut it out if you have.
Quite possibly. Well, it was done, so yes, yeah.
I mean, so everyone has their coping mechanism. That's the point I'm making. But for me, I found a lot of comfort in the spiritual part of it. The person I saw spiritually was in the Jewish religion, part of United Shul, and they, but I messaged them shortly after they were recommended to me, and I went to meet them. Didn't even give my name, and I sat in the room, and it was like she knew. I keep saying it. Sorry, I know. It was like she knew me from years. The stuff they knew no one else could know, and you know, it was mind blowing. But the first thing that I knew was that Maddie was at peace, and to be able to relate that to the night after Maddie fell ill and was at Great Ormond Street, to waking up in the bed that morning, the morning she died, and seeing her dancing at the end of the bed with my 2 children in the bed with me. That gave me a lot of comfort, because I saw her dancing, bearing in mind she couldn't walk or talk, but she was dancing on her tiptoes, and I can still see that picture in my head. And she was smiling, and she was happy, and she was at peace. And that was reiterated in that first meeting. And what this person told me is that, if we want to go really deep and dark, not dark, deep, that the synagogue knew of her powers, of what she could do. And while they know religious people know that they can do it, if you think of the Kabbalah and all this sort of thing, they can communicate. And rabbis and spiritualists, and in Jewish religion anyway, can do it, but choose not to. And it gave me that belief that there was another world, and this is part of that journey. We are in this sort of in-between space where, whether we've been tested or whatever. And I suppose in a way, then my thinking goes to, well, okay, this all sounds mad, right? But when you talk about it, it still makes sense to me. You know, people come onto this planet and they go too young, and they come onto this planet for a reason and a purpose. Now, whether that's a singer, whether that's somebody who has a mission, and when you fulfill that mission, it's time for you to go. And I believe that Maddie came onto this planet to teach people a lesson. And it's only a small community. It's not a world lesson, but it's a lesson. And I learned to appreciate Maddie through that spiritual journey, and understand what my journey on this planet was. And that's how I got to this point today of sitting with you, meeting you. The tattoo I had thought about, and nobody knew about the tattoo. And in the second or third session, when the spiritualist said, "When you getting that tattoo?" And I was like, what? Maddie thinks it's a good idea. I was like, holy shit. And I can see Lee's welling up.
I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm not at all.
Cold.
No,
okay.
no, I'm not welling up at all.
Okay.
No.
He just thinks I'm talking bullshit.
No, look, total dry eyes.
It's just as cold, or as hay fever.
No, look, total dry. Not a well. No, sorry.
Yeah. So when I went to Israel, went to Tel Aviv, and I got the tattoo that everyone knows about. And she said to me, and you need to get a dog. And, I got the dog. I literally was in touch with people a couple of weeks earlier. And she said, when you getting the dog? And Maddie thinks it'd be lovely. And she could see the colour orange. She couldn't make the connection. And I remember, I got back home and I went back to the videos of the dogs, and there was a dog in the video that ran to the screen and like on the camera. It wasn't like the cameras we have today, but ran to the camera, sniffed the camera, only one to come to the camera, and it was wearing an orange collar. And I instantly phoned them and said, I want that dog. And then they were like, that dog's not available. Anyway, about a week later, they called back and said the dog's come available again. So I said, I'll have it. No question. Deposit, sent the money straight away. Had some money saved for Maddie, which was exactly the amount that the dog was going to cost us. And it emerged the day I collected the dogs that she was actually born the night or the morning Maddie fell ill and died, basically. Was brain dead. And when I got the dog, drove to Bristol, collected the dog, and I introduced her in that room. And the spiritualist said to me, when you get that dog, it's going to act very strange in her bedroom, in Maddie's bedroom. And that dog, and anyone who knows that dog, Pepper, her name is, we named her after Peppa Pig, the show. She is Pepper as well in colour, because she's a poodle. When she goes into that room, she just turns into this dog that just needs to cuddle everybody. Almost like Maddie's channeling herself through that dog. And what she's done for my other two girls, that dog, it's sort of like, I know dogs have a limited lifespan, but it's helped them into their adult life now, please God. You know, she hugs me like Maddie would have hugged me. She wraps her paws around my shoulders. There's various photos of me and that dog together.
Yeah, probably don't want to see those photos.
No, no, that's the other dogs.
Oh, the other dogs. The other dogs. Anyway, we're out of time, so thanks very much for the Serge Cowan Show.
Thank you very much. Good night. So she told me to say, or told me, you know, that was writing the book, which is basically the story of Maddie's week, the week she passed, and the shiver and all the other things we had to deal with after she died, and reflecting on her life, you know, and said various things about that which haven't come to fruition. So, you know, but that's my choice. But at the same time, you know, that was a road I went down, and I haven't seen her for quite a few years now, and I do still reach out to her because there was other things she said, which I'll talk about later, because I could talk all day about this and you haven't got a word in edgeways. But I'm just interested to know, you've said to me in the past that you didn't ever want to touch it.
I think what it is, it's not so much I didn't want to touch it. There are large elements of it that I believe. There are some elements I don't. I think for me, probably the main reason why I didn't want to is because I didn't want to know that she was there and
just behind you.
Exactly. I wouldn't want to know that she was there and she's okay and she's here and da da da, because that doesn't. I can't see her. I can't hug her. I can't hold her. I can't smell her. I can't touch her hair.
So why did you do the tattoo?
Because it was my way of remembering her and having at least sort of her name there, so she'll always be in there. And even when I look at Madeline, it's in there.
So we did the tattoos for slightly different reasons, because obviously I did it, as I said, because she lives on. I believe she lives on within my heart.
But I think ultimately we still got it for the same reason. You still get it for the same reason, to remind you, to be with you, to be part of you. It's still the same.
Do you ever get a warming in your heart like she's present?
No.
No. We need to get you in tune with that.
But maybe
it's a lovely feeling.
But maybe it's because I don't need that feeling. Why do I... I'm just chucking in questions. Why do I need that warmth inside me to know that she is with me? Why do I need that?
For me...
But why... Okay, sorry, yes, go on.
No, for me, it makes me know that she's safe and protected and looked after. It's comfort for me.
Okay. See, I could be really cold.
Go on. I can be cold.
Yeah. And when I say shit, it's because we're both in exactly the same situation. She's dead. I don't mean that in a... Do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm not... And when I say she, I mean, you know, mine, yours. I'm not trying to say... No, you know, I'm not trying to do that at all. But it's... Yes, I suppose if there is some kind of afterlife or whatever you want to call it, then it's nice to know that they are at peace, or they're happy, or they're comfortable, or they're having fun, or they're whatever. And it's comforting, and it's definitely comforting. But for me, it's not, maybe it's quite selfish. It's not going to change. I suppose actually maybe it is quite selfish. Maybe it would be nice to know that she is, because then actually for her, she's comfortable and happy, and that's okay. But then again, I suppose in a way, maybe it was I was worried that if they say, actually, because they're never going to say, okay, yes, we've got, yeah, I've got Alfred here. Oh no, he's not happy. Oh no, he's not having a good time. Oh no, he's what? Oh, he's sitting with a load of Arsenal fans in the Arsenal stadium forever. Oh no. Do you know what I mean? They're never going to say, actually, it's having a bit of a shit fest.
So you're saying...
They're only going to give you... No, I'm not...
They're charlatans.
No, I'm not saying they're charlatans, because I do believe a lot of them... I have been watching one on TikTok, and he's phenomenal. And I've seen him do stuff, and you see people's reactions. And I know in the past when people say, oh, they're acting.
Is the comedy shows where they sort of say, the name of your...
Is it Brian, Bernard, but that's it, yeah. Ben,
is it
yes.
Peter Kay did one, I think.
Yeah, it's yes, it's I forget his name now. Yeah, it'll come to me. Yeah, no, I think I auditioned for a very similar thing. Yes. Am I getting? That's right. Yes, I'm getting the word nonce. That one. Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. But I'll remember his name. And I have been watching one on TikTok, and when you see the people that he's talking to, and you see their reactions, and some people go, oh yeah, they're acting. There are some ways that people act and don't act, and you can tell reactions when they're genuine and when they're not genuine, and you can tell a lot of these are genuine reactions, and you can see that the stuff he's doing is like, that's a gift, and I don't dispute that at all. I do think some people have the most amazing gift, but I do remember after we lost Madeline, it's a friend of my mother's and stepfather who claims to be a medium.
Oh, my mum did the same.
And there was a book of remembrance that I think people wrote in. I think it's still at my mother's. I don't think I've ever got it, but it's fine. And she wrote in it, when she was at the funeral, I was there at the funeral, and I saw Madeline there, skipping, and she said something like, "It's okay, Mummy and Daddy." And when I heard this, or skipping or dancing or something, I think it was skipping, and when I heard this, both Tamara and I looked at each other like, but Madeline never did that. She would never go, it's okay, mummy and daddy. And it's like, if you're going to, choose words, at least sort of.
Yeah.
So
I've got an example I
okay.
can give you. So something one of the spiritualists said to me was, Maddie's playing the song "A Whole New World," and I was like, hold on a minute. I don't know what song she liked, because it was very hard for her to sort of give that information, because she would smile and she would cry. Basically, there was no middle point with her. But the interesting thing about that song is now, whenever I listen to that song, it wells me up and it makes me think of Maddie. Even though it wasn't part of her life, in my view, I still use that song now, relates to Maddie in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, it's not weird. It's a connection.
Yeah, but it's not a connection that I would have ever put on Maddie when she was alive, right?
Yeah, okay.
So it's almost like some spiritualists are there maybe to comfort you as a form of therapy, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a placebo effect again, isn't it?
And then you sort of get confused of what you actually believe in, or what actually happens.
If it helps you,
yeah,
in your healing, then surely that's a good thing. I think the worry is, and the danger is, when you start to become reliant on these.
Absolutely.
And every...
What is that? It's the old, if you see a butterfly, or if you see a feather in your living room.
It's a feather. I had... So again...
Do you know how many feathers my pillows dispose of?
So again, and I remember my wife and I, we've spoken about this loads of times.
You can't use the feather. You can't use a feather.
You can't do a lot of things. Lee?
The amount of feathers I collected in the first year after Maddie died.
And a good friend of mine equally went through loss of a child. And I remember, a feather would fall into the car or land on the path in front of her, and she would say, oh, look, a feather, this must be...
My dad did the same after my mum died.
And I suppose for her, it gave her comfort. For me, it means nothing. And I'm not saying that I'm right and she's wrong, or vice versa.
Yeah,
but to me...
a lot of it you have to take with a pinch of salt. And
you've got to, otherwise you will go
because
totally...
one of the other things, and it's quite hard for me to say this because it's sort of like this is in the future, but one of the things she said very early in the process is she could sense the desire for me to have another child. And
when did she say this?
Right at the start.
Of your therapy session? Oh, sorry, of your...
When I first saw her, yeah. She said I can...
And how soon was that after?
About, I think, maybe 1 or 2 sessions in. So she would only see me once every few months.
Okay, so how soon after you lost Maddie was that?
I think I first saw her about 3 months after Maddie died.
It's fucking quick to say something like that. Or quite...
What she actually said to me was, I can see your grandfather... And she named him. And he's got a baby boy on his lap. And basically 2 years pass, 3 years pass, and you're like, okay, well she got 1 out of 15 things wrong, whatever.
Okay.
Or maybe 1 out of 5. And then this year, the last couple of years, I meet the love of my life, and boom, we have a baby boy on the way. And you can't help but think, Okay, is that an odds thing? Is that a ratio? She put, I don't know. And you know what? I've reached out to her recently, and for she's extremely popular, and she's given me a date in August, and we'll chat about it then. But she when I tell her things have come true or things have happened in relations, yes, like that, because she knows that what she does, she truly believes that it's real. And I'd love to invite a spiritualist onto this show, because it's sort of.
I'm going to have to say yes,
we're
because
I
think
we're not doing a Ouija board or anything.
No. As I said,
who used to work in this office?
Yeah, I know you used to work next door.
Ouch.
I would have to say yes, because I think we'd have to. I think part of the journey is going on these slightly uncomfortable.
Well, that's why we're doing this, right? Because we're all on this journey.
Because also it might be that there might be other people listening, watching, that have thought about it. There might be couples. There might be couples that are thinking one does, one doesn't.
Yeah, but I honestly think people go one of two ways. One way, they go down that spiritual route, which I have done. I wouldn't say, when I say I'm Jewish, I'd say I do the right things. I repent my sins once a year, and
Because that makes it okay.
Well, it does, and I walk out and swear. Literally, the first thing I do.
Is swearing bad?
I swear at my dad, which is the worst time, right? Because I'm joking. Sorry, sharks. But I do, but then the other people go down the other way and just reject it and become atheists. But it would be interesting to know, when we start inviting people onto these shows, and we've got a few people lined up now, which is really exciting, where they went. We had a conversation with someone in America literally 2 weeks ago, and he's got an amazing followers, and like huge following, should I say, in English, huge following in America. And we sat down, and the first thing he did was say, "I want to show you a picture." I think me and Lee looked sort of. I think I touched Lee's leg or something. I think
we couldn't say no, could we?
And he jumped up. No, Lee jumped up. So don't touch my leg. No, he didn't.
I don't think I did.
No, you didn't.
I don't think I did. I'm not that cold and while someone's trying to open up their innermost sort of.
Well, we're intimate with each other, but not
darkest
that sort of
photo. Me sort of go, have a joke, have a laugh. No, there's a time and a place.
And he pulled up on Google Meets a picture, and the picture was his car, and his car was literally.
It was demolished,
torn in two.
It was absolutely demolished. I think we both looked at it, and I remember looking at it going, "Wow, okay. Where do you go from here? What do you even?"
And he openly told us what had happened.
Yeah,
his two kids were wiped out instantly in the car crash. He was driving, and he survived.
I never actually asked him, did he have any injuries?
When we get him on the podcast, we'll ask him, and he's coming on in the next few weeks.
And the thing is,
it was the first time that I thought, in a way, I've been quite self-absorbed in my own grief journey. You're looking at me. I'm not trying not to make eye contact with you for various reasons.
Really?
Yeah.
You self-absorbed? I wouldn't hear of that.
I think everyone's self-absorbed in their own journey.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? If I can just say, I think we do become. We still, although we know it's not just me, it's you and it's others. We still think it's just me.
Yeah,
I'm feeling like this. You have no right to feel happy. No, I don't care. It's me. It's about me. And I can't help it. And I have to stop myself. And I find myself a lot of the time And that's why it helps being with people like you, because you do suddenly go, yeah, it's because when I hear about all the therapy that you're doing and the fucking antidepressants and this, that, and the other. No, seriously, I think you know what, Lee, you're not you're coping and you're not, but it's not just you, and you have your problems, and then you come out with yours, and then, as you say, we're sitting down, we're talking. Let me say his name. Okay, we're talking to this guy, and then he shares his story with us and shows the photos. You then go, fuck, okay, wow.
It was, despite Lee's best efforts, it was the closest I've come to breaking down. I literally had to hold back the tears because.
So why did you hold back the tears? Did you feel guilty about?
No, because I can't get in tune with myself like that at the moment.
We need to get that out of you. As I said, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that you need to cry at every single given opportunity. And I'm not saying that when you cry, it's got to be a full-blown, oh, he's gone. Serge is gone. He's gone. Well, what, can we? No, he'll be gone for an hour. He'll be wailing like a baby for an hour. No, it doesn't have to be like that.
I think
it could be a little
but
just a little tear.
This is about that journey we're all on. We're on different journeys, and in my world, nothing surprises me. Right, and what I mean by that is, I've got stuff going on in my life. Lee has stuff going on in his life. The guy in America, and he said his name, has stuff going on in his life. We still have to live our daily lives. And when you're on that journey, there are other things that prevent you from moving on with your life to a certain degree, right? And that's going back to part of our anger at the moment. And, one day we will share all those sort of feelings a bit more. But it wouldn't be right to at this time. And one of the things that I relate to spirituality is dreams. Now, I don't dream.
No, I hardly dream.
And
but do you think
when I do dream?
Sorry,
save that question. When I do dream,
he doesn't like to be interrupted.
I remember. Well, I'm on a roll here.
All right.
When I do
been
dream,
on a roll for 45 minutes.
When I do dream, the dreams I interpret into meaning something, and it's a subconscious, right? And one of the dreams is doing a DJ event, and no, fuck off.
Sorry,
it was true. That's why I give it up.
Hey, Serge, you're great.
Don't get me started on the DJing. Anyway, it was a coping mechanism. Now out of it, it's like when I went running, like a Michiganer, 3 or 4 days a week. It was a coping mechanism at the time. Now I look at running and I think I couldn't think of anything bloody worse than going for a run for 3 hours of my day. But the point I'm making is that the dream was trying to get somewhere, like being late for a gig, and everyone's waiting for me, and I can't get there. However I try, I hit a traffic jam or whatever it is.
Yeah, car stops.
Goes
into reverse.
And it's
a mudslide.
It doesn't matter what it is. The point is, I can't get to the destination.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you're like, well, that's exactly what's happening in my life.
Yes, but that
to me is seeing Maddie in that dream. Is that me comforting myself, or is that reality? It's trying to understand what that all means, and then you interpret it in the way you want to interpret it, right? And it's the same with spiritualists. You interpret it in the way you want to interpret it, because it helps you cope.
Yes,
we will translate everything into the way we want to translate. And one of my favourite sort of interpretations of religion based on spirituality is the life of Brian. Now, there's a scene in that movie where Brian is running away from all his followers, and he was holding a gourd. Is it a gourd? A gourd. And one of his sandals falls off. And basically, the followers, one of the followers picks up the sandal and goes, follow the shoe.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other one picks up the gourd, follow the gourd.
Yes.
And they all run in different directions.
Yes.
And that was the formation of a religion, right?
Yes, pretty much.
And that symbolism's perfect. Because that's what religion is. It's a coping mechanism of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different interpretations. Even in Judaism, there's different interpretations. You can, in Sephardi, you can eat rice during Passover. But
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And
yeah, it's and you can't eat like. Oh no, I don't know if that's just when we were in Israel. It's like you can't eat broccoli.
I don't know that.
Yeah, because they can't inspect all the florets because there's so many florets. So
well, I know you couldn't eat blueberries because they can't afford them. They're very expensive out there.
Well, blueberries are very expensive anyway.
Not here. £1 for a packet. I know. I eat them like a nutter.
Where do you go?
Tesco. Well, maybe £1-2 now, but cost of living and all that.
But I think it's broccoli. But then that might not be possible. Like you say, rice. Yes, exactly.
But the point is, when I argue with my partner about kosher, why can't we eat shellfish?
Well, there's a quite a, yeah.
Yeah, but my reasoning for eating it is different to hers.
Well, what's her reason for?
Well, I because it's dirty.
But that's where kashrut. If you want,
Absolutely.
yes, they live at the bottom of the sea and
Yeah.
they eat the crap off the seabed.
But
so
what about the ones that are farmed?
Yes, but then no, you're absolutely right. But then it's like because remember,
I'm just
no,
being
but just on a quick on that
Yeah.
because all the laws. They were there from thousands and thousands of years ago before we had refrigeration and before we had all of this.
And interpretations change over time.
Yes. Well, it's
So-
like 1 minute you can't carry in a certain area until all the rabbi get together.
So my argument is why can't you drive? If someone else is driving you from one location to the next, why isn't that okay? From what I understand, the rabbi, when he went to the coronation of the king...
He stayed in Clarence House.
So did he walk from Clarence House?
Yes.
Okay. So but he should have been in shul on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I don't quite know where this is.
I'm just saying that I'm making a point. You interpret things how you want to interpret them. You make get different dispensation depending on
yes, but I don't know.
People cope in certain ways.
Yes,
and with grief, it's the same. Because for me, I'm on a route. I still don't know the exact route.
No.
And
also, does the route ever end?
And is my route right? Probably not. Who knows?
Well, there's no right or wrong.
Is anyone right? Is any religion right? And that's the point, because ultimately, the one mystery of life that nobody knows is the meaning of life. We need a big bifter for this, don't we?
Oh, I don't do anything like that anymore.
The old chicken and the egg scenario, right? Yeah. What came first,
yeah.
Right? It's well, what happens when we die? Where do we go? Where is Maddie and Maddie?
Will I see Maddie when I die?
And I believe that I will, in whatever form. And that is my coping mechanism there. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm not telling you should. But I like to think that it makes my life that little bit easier.
Yes, it probably does.
By knowing that she's safe.
Well, it certainly does for you. That's the impression I get. That's
Yeah.
definitely the impression I get.
Yeah. Now,
it makes it easier for you.
Some people will watch this and think, this guy's off his fucking head. And I'm very aware of that, and that's why I've seen a lot more
people. I've seen a lot more people talk a lot more shit, and I mean that genuinely.
But that was my concern with coming on doing these podcasts, because I was very aware of what people would make of my views and my feelings.
I'd hardly say your views and feelings are out there.
Well, no one can say how I want to feel. ultimately, and that's why podcasting
anything
is so brilliant, because it's an open forum to say how you feel.
Yes, but a lot of people are very frightened of saying stuff because they don't want their opinions to get out there.
Yeah.
When I'm like, don't worry about your opinions because it's just your opinions.
Yeah.
As long as they're not sort of hateful and venomous against individuals, but I don't think anything you have said over the last 3-4 podcasts has been.
Did you have any routines that you sort of put into place that you found you were doing which weren't necessarily the normal for you?
It's funny because no one's actually has ever asked me that, and it's not something I've ever thought, did I have a routine after? There's going to be that silence on the podcast for about 30 seconds.
We can edit it.
We can edit it out to make it go, wow, he thought of that quickly.
Well, let me give you an example, right? So for me, my routine was to reach out to Maddie every night.
Yeah.
And on the back of spirituality and meeting the spiritualist, I felt that I could feel her in my heart. And as I said, it was like this burning, warming sensation. And it's sort of like, I then...
Not heartburn.
No, it could have been heartburn, but then I got the anxiety as well. Okay. So I could tell the difference. Yeah. The anxiety hits me in the chest, in the stomach here.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a coping mechanism anyway. And that exhale of breath and that sort of thing sort of helps me cope with that. But I looked at God as not necessarily the way I used to look at God, which was this all-empowering sort of thing above our heads.
Okay.
Up there. And I looked at Maddie as my higher power, I suppose, in a way. And I would reach out to her. And some people say you're talking to yourself, but I believe that I'm talking to Maddie every night. And I ask her what she's done with her day. And I
don't remember doing anything like that, but I suppose because initially in the beginning, and I can't remember how long it would have been, obviously her room wouldn't have changed that much. It was probably quite a while. So I suppose, you know, in the same way that you'd be talking to her or what have you, you'd be in the room.
Did you puff her pillows? Did you tidy it up?
I think I'm looking over because my wife's. You see, you need to do this. You need to be. It's not about just blubbering into a wreck on the floor, but you need to just sometimes just have a look. I think you're nearly. No, cold as steel,
cold as ice.
But it's nothing wrong with just having a little flutter of the bottom lip.
You mentioned.
But okay, so if I'm just trying, I think probably initially the only thing would have been the smelling of the jacket. The smelling of the pillow in her bedroom
it's the sixth senses.
Because her bed was there and that was all we had.
Yeah. Well, that's
so.
exactly
If it comes to routines, then I can't think.
I went when I wrote the book. I talked about Maddie's aroma because she used to dribble quite a lot.
Yeah, he said this,
and she had this headrest here, and her saliva used to sort of stain the side of her headrest. And for about 3 months, I would go into her room, I would check it, everything was parked neatly, tidy, all in its position, her chair was a certain angle. And I would go up and I would just sniff the side of that.
Yeah.
And it would just warm me, warm my heart.
Yes.
And it was like that for a long time. And then, you know, as I said,
it's funny, there is one particular picture that I do look at. It's the one particular picture that I do look at that I suppose if was the most emotive picture, it's that one. I don't know why it's that one, but it is that one. But I don't think that's I don't actually think I had any real routines after.
So how did you initially? Did you go to synagogue? Did you?
Well, I went to synagogue only because I felt I kind of not had to, but it was a little bit of a rock to hold on to in a storm, because as much as I'm not religious at all, I suppose some people might argue that after something like that, well, what have you got to sort of help guide you through? You got like... So to have that process where you're having the sitting, the shiva, when you have people coming to pay their respects, whether you're Christian or Jewish or whatever it is, it's something that people can do, so you can go through that process to at least help you maybe put a full stop or an underline. So then after that you can go, okay, I've done that now. I can now get on. All the people that say, I'm going to be with you every single week and call you, I'm going to be there for you. Yeah, a week later, where are they? Fucking gone.
We can talk about what people are like.
So I did go to synagogue, and funnily enough, when I went to one of the synagogues to say Mourner's Kaddish, what have you, and the rabbi that was there, who I think passed away a little while ago, was the only... I don't actually even think he was a real rabbi when I was at boarding school. I don't think he was. He was the only rabbi that I got on with at boarding school, and he was lovely. And I saw him, again, coincidence, or I hadn't seen him in years. Oh, lovely to see you. What are you doing here? Oh, I'm saying Kaddish for my daughter that I lost a few weeks ago. Oh, but he was a rabbi. He could do, But that was that's when I went to synagogue, and I went for a bit, and that was it. And after that, I shaved what was... That was it, really.
When we were at the Great Ormond Street, it came up pretty quickly because I didn't have sort of plot rights and all that sort of thing at the shul, and it came up pretty quickly. I had a friend who I call the Mensch, who also became the funeral director in the whole process, but that's another story for another day. And he said, look, don't worry about this. Focus on Maddie. And throughout the course of that day, I remember I got a call, and the rabbi from Bushy Shul was coming up to see me to the hospital. But we'd already ordered the chaplain at Great Ormond Street, the Jewish chaplain. And then we had this sort of weird situation.
He doesn't turn up with a cane.
Because it turned up... No, it turned up... Not Charlie Chaplin. No, okay. That was a terrible dad joke, that.
It's an awful dad joke. I will cut that out.
Basically... No, you're not keeping that in. Keeping my other thing I said earlier in. Which we won't be saying right now. No. But basically, it turns out I'm a Cohen.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And being a Cohen is quite a big thing. And it was almost like they rolled the red carpet out for me. They didn't give me one plot at the shul. They gave me 3 plots on condition I became a member immediately, and they helped me dramatically.
Did you have to pay for 3?
No, I didn't pay a penny for any of them.
Okay.
And I'll be forever grateful for that, because we wanted Maddie to be near us. And, we had a moment where there was 2 rabbis competing to do the Shema and all this sort of thing over the bed, and it was, one of them was singing louder than the other, and it was.
It's all a mitzvah, isn't it?
You got caught up in this moment. You're trying to, you're in this moment, and all you're thinking of is, this is not funny, but just strange. And then they were talking about, giving up Maddie's parts for research and other things, and there was the complications of what happens when they're buried and questions like that, and just pictured these moments of rabbis talking, and about, well, Rabbi Shlomo, you can't do this, you can't, and all this sort of conversation. And then, after a couple of days later, I get called from the chief rabbi. And it's like, this is just, it was almost like I felt like at certain points I've been sort of like, they sort of try and bring you in, and you get captured in that moment. But then that is a coping mechanism. At the very early stages of grief, you have to find something. And, religious people, they're amazing people. They're but at the same time, you start doubting yourself and doubting that part of your journey, which is what we've been speaking about, is how we, how spirituality has sort of affects the grief journey. And then how you deal with it as the years go on. I went from going from Friday night at shul every week, religiously, literally, to not going for over a year now.
Yeah.
Because it changes.
Yes.
Over time. And as you get older, it changes again.
Yep.
So there's no right or wrong in religion. We're all people are going to suffer the same grief, whether it's losing a child, whether it's losing a relative, whether it's losing a friend, under all sorts of different circumstances. And, again, I can't reiterate it more. Men don't talk enough about the grief journey, and their feelings and their emotions. And, we want to get men talking, because I do believe men do talk. And on that note...
You do it well all the time, don't you?
I do.
You're getting good at it.
I'll wrap it up. We'll see you again very soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you.